All right, go.
I'm rocking with Don Kilam.
Let's go. Peace and love. It's your boy Don Kilam, also known as Malik Kilam. And as always, prosperity is your divine birthright. I'm bringing something special to you today. We're discussing political status correction because it's something that keeps being brought up to me over and over again. And I'm having all these students and members in the school. I can't reach out to everyone one-on-one directly unless you're paying, man. Time is money. A workman's worthy of hire. But you can only imagine my time, you know. I'm booked and busy always. But that's what we ask for, so I'm not complaining. But I'm not a licensed attorney or tax expert. I do this for educational and informational purposes only. Starting off with political status correction. Understand that when you come into this matrix, so to speak, you're already engaging with a trust system. So at the top of the food chain is trust law. When it comes to the Social Security number, that is a public trust. That is a public trust. Is for the public sector. You know, in the private, they don't necessarily utilize Social Security numbers or even birth certificates. There's alternatives to these things. And I'm going to get deep and go over the birth certificate in a little bit in details. But what I want everybody to understand is learning how to operate in a tax-free position so they can hand down their future assets, their future wealth, their generational wealth tax-free. Your name is the business. Your name is the legacy. And that's what we're here to preserve. So understanding, once you understand where you're at in this game with the political status change, and then the next step would be the family trust. So your last name is the wealth. Your last name is the wealth. That's truly the only thing we can hand down. When you die, you hand down your wealth publicly, or you can hand down your wealth privately. So that's what, truthfully, everything is about. Our ancestors, when they were here, they didn't, they didn't hold on to possessions or worldly things. So America was founded on not paying taxes, like truthfully. So if you're paying taxes, you're not American. You're a U.S. citizen. Those are two different key words. Those are things you have to understand. The difference between a national and a citizen. The difference between an American and a U.S. citizen. These are two different things. And taxes are for those who come from an uninformed family. If there's no trust or no will, it will be in a testate position, and you will go through probate. This is the court process. And this is the basis of the American court system today. So the first key of handing down wealth is the correct tax position. And this is the purpose of political status correction, proving that you're an American versus a U.S. citizen, proving that you're part of the private sector versus the public sector. And the families that do this are the Amish. Jewish families do this. The upper echelons of the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons. Even in the private, Freemasons, they're charity-based, unincorporated associations, which is private trusts, outside the scopes of codes and statutes. This is the common law jurisdiction. When you look up unincorporated association, you'll see that unincorporated associations, and they can be opened up at your local bank, PNC, Chase Bank, Bank of America. Call these banks, Google these banks, ask them about the unincorporated association. You don't have to incorporate with the Secretary of State, and you don't have to report anything to the IRS. So you're learning how to maneuver in the private sector and maneuver tax-free without reporting obligations in the public sector. The private sector is the part of the economy that the government does not control. The public sector is the part of the economy that the government does control. All right, these are two different sectors. There's also a voluntary sector when you're getting into the unincorporated associations, you get into the family foundations, the 508c1a ministry trusts, which are faith-based organizations. A 508c1a ministry trust is a faith-based organization, and it is a form of an unincorporated association. It just has a code or a statute attached. The 508c1a is the federal statute that's attached, the federal code that's attached. But if there is no will or no trust, you will be in a testate position, and you will go through probate. This is the court process. Think about it. Probation, that's a court process. All right. So when you're setting up these trusts, you never receive income or funds directly. You create a separate, distinct entity. The elite move strictly in trusts and unincorporated associations and private foundations. And you can look these things up, like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Susan Thompson Buffett Foundation. This is how the elite move. And I was just looking through a lot of billionaires and some millionaires, and some people even make their full name the foundation, which, it makes sense to me, but I like to keep my name off of things. You have to learn how to just name them something else. Like I have a holding company called Source Capital Group, a nonprofit called the Kilam of Kilam. But we could create the McBride Family Foundation. That's coming from the government name. But I don't operate from the name. I go by Don Kilam in the public. When it comes to the family name and assets, I had turned my name into a business, a LLC to be specific, and there's layers to that, and I'm going to go over that. So when it comes to status correction, I do want you to understand that, or understand, those are key words. Understand that your name is the business starting off. It's a trade name. Your trade name. And in this trade name, is created on this birth certificate, and it turns you into a sole proprietorship. This means you are reliable for the business debts. You're reliable for the business. There's no distinction between you and the business. Look at your government IDs. Look at any bill they send you in the mail. Your name's spelled in all capitalized letters. Just look at it. This is not by coincidence. You were not taught to spell your name in all capitalized letters. I'm not going to get deep today, but spelling is spell casting. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. All right? And the Word was with God. You come through the world first through an ultrasound, words and sounds. This is how you're spellbound in this game. This is what's keeping you on the terms and conditions on your phone. This is what's making them enforce. And when you don't pay a bill or a tax, they have your property. They have your property leaned up, it's securitized on the private side, securitization on the private side, but your property is collateral for all these spells that you agree to. So I like to say political status correction because some people just call it status correction. And the reason why I like to call it political status correction, because that's the real name of it. That's truly the real name of it. But how are these political figures viewing you in the system? Because they're the trustees for the public trust. This sets the K-Vi trust when you're utilizing the Social Security number. See, when you're part of the uninformed families, you're given this number by default. This is your number to operate in commerce. You must have a number. And instead of being attached to the Social Security number, you can get something called an employee identification number to operate with the matrix, to operate in the public system. And your Social Security number does not have to be attached. You can get an EIN without your Social Security number being attached, either by calling it in or faxing it in. And you just put that you're foreign, or you put all zeros in your Social Security number. You're like, well, I'm not foreign. There's different ways. So one way is I teach people to get the Palau ID. Look it up, Palau digital residency. They'll send you a real ID for the Republic of Palau. But secondly, you have to understand that you're already foreign to United States Corporation. Under 28 U.S.C. 3002, subsection 15A, United States means federal corporation. I'm showing you how to make your name a business and separate from the federal corporation. Now you're foreign. Coming as a national versus citizen. Now you're foreign. All right? Make America great again. That's what Donald Trump said. So you want to be an American national. When you claim a nationality, your state can be your nationality. Every state has a constitution. That's the laws of the business of that state. You can be a national of the state. Your state is your country. Look this up. It's called a nation state. So your nation state can be your nationality. It's called a statehood. Your state can be your nationality. Texans come from Texas. Alaskans come from Alaska. If you're from Missouri, you're Missourian. California is Californians. New York is New Yorkers. I hope this is making sense for everybody. And this is in the Styles Manual of the United States of America. All right? They break down the rules of capitalization, and they break down statehood. All right? Every state is a nation. The state is really a country because America is a continent. When you go to Africa, you got Kenya, right? They're Kenyans, correct? You go to Nigeria, they're Nigerians, correct? They're not Africans, because Africa is the continent. So when you come to America, every state is a country with their own rules and regulations and their own constitution. But when it comes to political status correction, you're either a person, which is a persona, which means corporation. Under 28 USC 3002, look it up. Person means corporation as well. You know, they got rid of we the people and they made you a person. All right. And then they go again, black and white. That's not a nationality. That's an adjective. So now that falls under their jurisdiction. So when it comes to political status correction, we got identity, status, and then standing. These are the three things I want everybody to write down. Identity, status, and then standing. Imprint this in your mind. Identity means who are you? Now, once they identify you, that shows what your status is. And once identify your status determines your citizenship class. Mr. and Mrs. is a citizenship class. And I'm going to get over that in a minute. I'm going to go over that in a minute. So standing, your standing is your status and determines what you have right for. So you got identity. They identify who you are, Mr., Mrs., Dr., Judge, U.S. citizen, American national, foreign national. And as an American national, foreign national, you have rights. You have different rights that a U.S. citizen may not have. And they're in every police handbook on how to deal with foreign nationals. Just look up foreign nationals in your city police handbook. So identity, status, and then standing. Identity, who are you? Once they identify who you are, this shows your status, and that determines your citizenship class. Then standing, your standing shows what you have rights for. All right? So let's say your status is an American national and not a federal citizen. Your rights would be granted under common law and not federal statutes or codes. I need you to understand everything's an unincorporated association. When you follow under common law, you're using case law, stare decisis, Supreme Court decisions. In the private, that's what they utilize. In America, is common law. But some examples of political status are, but not limited to, because it's endless, a U.S. citizen, a resident, a non-resident, a state citizen, American national, a foreign national, a foreign resident, a tourist, a secured creditor. We go over that too. And before I continue, the secured creditor is the one who creates the security agreement, has the security interest from the security agreement, the one who perfects the lien. So when people put liens on your house or they put liens on your car, they're the actual secured creditors. So you have to learn how to switch that position. And I like to switch that position to my holding company. My holding companies are always a secured creditor. I never put private trust on the UCC1 when it comes to doing a lien, because the UCC1 is not the actual lien itself, it's evidence of a lien. But if I'm going to do a UCC1, I'm going to use a holding company and file that against whatever security interest that it may be. Single is also a status, married is a status, dependent is a status, taxpayer is a status, black, white, non-Hispanic, Hispanic, African American. So understand your status is critical of how you will be treated and perceived under public law. And standing just proves what you have rights for. So if you're a plaintiff, you're a defendant, you're an attorney, you have different rights. Friends of the court, you have certain and different rights. Now, I want to bring up, because it's important, you are already a sole proprietorship, and that's what I'm trying to tell you. So my first form of status correction is making my name a business. I like to make it an LLC, and there's layers to that. And then have a holding company in one of 5 charge and order protection states, whether that's Nevada, Wyoming, Alaska, South Dakota, or Delaware. And I will be the manager of this holding company. Now, if I want to remain anonymous, I'm going to have someone else be the manager of this holding company in one of the 5 charge and order protection states, appoint me as the new manager, and then have them resign right away. We don't have to update anybody of this change, but you just use these documents when opening bank accounts and doing business in the future, because it's lawful and legal. And now, with that being said, when it comes to status correction, you have to have agencies and attorneys. All right? Agents act only on behalf of a corporation. Agencies and attorneys are functionary of the corporate world corporation and need an agent. Anywhere there's an agent, there's a principal. So there has to be a registered office and a registered agent to receive service or process. The name given to you at the hospital at your birth is considered a public office. And anytime you accept the bills, books, or finances, you are claiming the office and pledge your labor and assets. This, in sense in law, means you are presumed to be a dead entity acting in capacity for the principal of the private retirement trust in the state, which is the Cessa KVI Trust, the Social Security Trust. For the all-capitalized business, you believe to be your name. So in this agency relationship that makes you liable to pay the levy and charges placed upon this dead entity to get out of this situation, you must sever ties or make positive administrative duties of this estate. The word attorn means to turn over money, rent, or goods to another. Attorney is an agent or something authorized to act for another. An attorney, in fact, is an alternate appointed legal rep, proxy, or surrogate. Surrogate's a key word too because it's all estates. So attorneys become powers of attorney of your finances, public and private, and become a spy for the court. Estate planning deals directly with powers of attorneys. A lawyer is a layman, so there's a difference between a lawyer and an attorney. There's no such thing as a license to practice law. License is permission to do something that's otherwise unlawful. So understand that the bar attorney has a superseding oath to the bar, which is the British Accredited Registry, the undertaker in the black robe. The bar attorney's first allegiance is to the crown, not you. All right? Attorneys do not have a license to practice law. Then we got color of law. When you start understanding law, a semblance of something that's real, but is not. So black and white, it falls under color and law. It strips away your nationality. I want to get deep a little bit on what happens. So the First Amendment clearly prevents the government from adding the father's name. That's what they do. It prohibits the making of any law respecting the establishment of religion or impeding the free exercise of religion. Thus, the term father would impede the establishment of religion. The Bible is a fact in the courtroom because if you claim it with your certificates and other government contracts, you show your status as a Roman citizen or slave. You shall own nothing and your rights are given to you. The birth certificate proves that you're a Roman slave, okay? There's absolutely no reason for the father not to be on the birth record except for religion. Matthew 23:9. And call no man your father on the earth, for one is your father, even he who is in heaven. So the signatures of parents. Have parents review the certificate of live birth for accuracy. Now, what happens is the Department of Health and Vital Statistics teach doctors, nurses, and hospitals administrations to coerce the mother into signing the certificate of live birth instead of the father, who is the executor of the estate, because the executor is the highest office of the estate, and the state does not care to deal with him. They would rather go after the informant or the trustee instead. Attempting to administer an estate without written authorized consent of the executor is very costly. So you have to understand the father is the executor of this estate. A person can only be saved through the father. Per son means one son. I'm going to break that down again really slow. Per son, that's a compound word. One son. So the state coerces the mother into signing the record of live birth as an informant, acting as a trustee. By doing this, acting as a trustee of the executors, the estate, the father, and giving the child to the state, ultimately abandoning the child is now considered to be the estate. The state runs an ad in a local paper announcing the birth and abandonment of the child. This is a public notice of the estate. They leave out the abandonment wording, though. That was the public notice in due process of the law. The purpose of an estate is the notice to the creditors.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Peace and love. It's your boy Don Kilam, and welcome to Dream Keepers Radio, that private life podcast. You're here, tuned in with your boy, and this is brought to you by Follow the Yellow Brick Road by Don Kilam. Search the book on Amazon now. Go get the book and uncover the matrix and how the United States is operating in the financial marketplace. Much peace and love. So I hope that makes sense. So take note that will is desire, initiating action, having intentions to make things happen. That executes, the executor to carry out the will of the grantor. The grantor being the sole proprietor of feetprints, the estate being the sole proprietor, the office created by the grantor, the sole proprietor for the occupant, the sole proprietor to carry out the will of the tester, the sole proprietor for the one who is deceased, the sole proprietor being the all caps given name. They split the title and create what's known as a certificate of live birth and send that newly created office to the child in the mail. It is his or her new identity, and when the child reaches legal age, he can now become the occupant of the executive's office of that newly created estate, but is never made aware of this fraud. Now the child grows up and remains incompetent ward of the state because he or she never steps up and assumes the proper roles. Then that now adult now uses certificate of live birth as their sole source of identity, even though the state advised not to use his identity. You're not 6 pounds, 7 ounces no more. You're still identifying as this. You're their asset. United States business means U.S. citizen. That's federal code and federal law. Oddly enough, the same government that says no to use the certificate of live birth demands that we do use it in order to get permission to do things like a driver's license, a social security card, to go to work. Ward of the state. So I had to break that down a little bit for everybody. And then this is going to tie in with debt. Getting out of debt. But we're not going over that today. I'm just breaking down. I'm breaking down how to truly be part of a different jurisdiction. I'm showing everybody common law jurisdiction. So they say law stands for land, air, and water. They're under admiralty and maritime. This is the law of the sea. The United States is under bankruptcy. That's where they utilize your Social Security trust. They use to pay back debts from your labor. You know, you go to work, you get taxed in, you use the same money that you got taxed on and get taxed again. So you got to learn how to maneuver differently, all right? So you cannot use public entities that the state controls. You have a right to contract. A private attorney knows how to administer a law and doesn't need power from the state. You got public sector, you got private sector. They have the public craft, they got the private craft, okay? Private practice is what it's called. So, and what I'm teaching is tax avoidance, not tax evasion. It's two totally separate things. Everything I'm teaching is legal and lawful, which is two different things. Look up the difference between legal and lawful. They're operating in legalities, and everything they're doing may not necessarily be lawful. Common law is lawful. So I'm teaching tax evasion. Article 1, Section 10 proves your right to contract. No state can interfere with this. No government can interfere with this. So if you look up case law, Gregory versus Helvery, this is a court case, and it clearly establishes tax avoidance and how to establish your affairs by giving up ownership. It clearly establishes tax avoidances and how to establish your affairs by giving up ownership. So by creating a superior entity, private comes before the public. Private families created the government. Private families created America. Private families, not the founding fathers, these were private families. The private is based upon hard assets and credits. You cannot default in the private. Now, in the public, you can default. The public is about debt. The United States is a federal corporation under bankruptcy. So if there's any laws that need to be administered, it needs to be bankruptcy law, And it needs to be accounting law. When you want to look up into accounting law, that's GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. And these are the laws that I would rather enforce if I'm using any type of public law. Now, in the private, they got UniJoy, and they even have uniform commercial codes. So the public is a debt position. And the reason why I say that is because the creditors can seize your assets. When you put things under your social security number or your public name, the creditors can now seize your assets. The private keeps in the private, they keep your assets private. Hard assets such as gold, silver. The private position is the superior position. When you learn how to operate, making your name a business, the holding companies, and then the beneficiary owner of the holding company is going to be your either your 508c or 1A ministry trust or a family trust. And this is what's going to protect you from lawsuits. And it's always business. It's never personal. So business credit always gets bigger. The loans gets bigger loans than personal credit. So when you're operating with the trust, and dealing with land, dealing with property, even with land trusts, I've learned how to get funding through portfolio funding. I'm not going to get deep on this today, but portfolio funding. So the funding is even more. You get more funding, and you can still stay private. You know, you can make the trust the guarantor of the funding because they're looking at the portfolio. You have to have assets. Private placement accounts, private shares, private stocks, real estate, holding companies, and investments. These are all part of the portfolio of the family trust. Insurance policies are also great investments for the family trust. The family trust will be the beneficiary because it's going to replace you if you die, because you are the greatest asset of the family trust. You have the insurance policy in place of yourself. It's going to replace you. The trust is the insurance policy beneficiary. So if you pass the trust, you can fill itself back up and have capital for the family trust and the offspring to step into the passive income situation where they can take the salary or take the money and reinvest it. And all this money will be in a tax-free manner. Insurance contracts are private contracts as well. Insurance contracts are part of the private sector. Same way with private placement accounts and private insurance. Private holding companies in one of the 5 charging order protection states to hold real estate. These are all considered asset classes, things to be part of the portfolio of a family trust. To live tax-free positions. Your job as a trustee is to grow the trust. When you're in a beneficiary position, you're always looking for a handout. And that's what's happening in the public. With the public trust, the Social Security number is a welfare program. So we set up endowment contracts as well with our family trusts to hand down wealth tax-free. Family libraries to preserve our lineage so you can create endowments. So at the top, there is things to do to be part of the land jurisdiction if you just want to be private. It starts with an unincorporated association, putting entities on notice. Let me see if I can to end this out, because people always ask, where do I find my paperwork? Because you can get the paperwork directly in my school at school.com/Don Kilam. Just look up school.com Don Kilam, but it's SKOOL.com/DONKILAM. So places to send your political status documents. And I have a non-taxpayer affidavit that I utilize. I update my tax status as a foreigner with a W-8-BEN. And under 8 USC 1408, you can say you're a national by using your state as a nationality so you can remain foreign. But it's called political status correction for a reason. So every time there's a new set of political leaders, you want to update everybody. So the president, every 4 years, update the president of your political status. That's the first person you should update at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Then you got the United States Department of the Treasury, Secretary of the Treasury in D.C. Then you got the Attorney General, United States Department of Justice. Then you got the Secretary of State. All these are in D.C. so far. Then you want to send it to your General Assembly. Every state has a general assembly. This puts you part of the land jurisdiction. This is what's going to put you, if you're in New York, you're going to be a New Yorker. It's called a general assembly. You want to update the governor of the colony or the state. Governor is a Roman word. Look that up. Same way with counties. Think about Count Dracula. So when you're in a county, that's a jurisdiction of an earl or a duke or a count. Count Dracula. Count is a royal title. All right. So anytime you're in a county or dealing with accounts, you're giving up your rights to the earl, to the duke, to the count. We want to update the IRS and the Department of Treasury. We update the United Nations. All right. We put things on record with our local county recorder's office, because if it's on the local county recorder's level, then the sheriffs have to enforce this. There's a bunch of different documents you can file, but I use a non-taxpayer affidavit or just a declaration of status. You can use something called an affidavit of sovereignty as well, just making them know that you're not part. I also have something called an oath of allegiance that's in my school, just making an oath of allegiance with the state. So this is making you separate. Every state has a constitution. Once again, this is what's going to protect you. And it's all common law. Every state constitution starts off, we're operating under common law, guaranteed. And they were all created. Every state was created to get out of taxes. What has happened while they're under federal jurisdictions is because they're under bankruptcy. They've took loans. They've created companies and took loans. But you don't have to be part of the public corporation. You're part of the private. You're part of the land jurisdiction. It's called a private C. You're creating your private C. You're no longer of the water. You're of the land. And now you're private. And that's what I got for y'all. Make sure y'all tap in. Most of this information came from the book From Citizen to Sovereign by Don Kilam. Look it up on Amazon now and go get it today. Much peace and love.
Flavor Flav in the building. Yo, Don Kilam, keep doing your thing, G. Hey, yo, check 1, 2. This is Flavor Flav in the building, you know what I'm saying? Word up. Hey, yo, make sure y'all check out the song bars, you know what I'm saying? Word up by my man Don Kilam. You heard? A Fresco King. Yeah, boy. You know what time it is. Make sure y'all check out the bars by my boy. All right? Flavor Flav in the building. Yo, Don Kilam, keep doing your thing, G.